Serious, what inside knowledge can you share with Reddit? Another one for hotels. The one I worked at required housekeepers cleaned rooms within 23 minutes. That means we had to vacuum the floors, mop the bathroom, wipe everything down, dust everything, change the sheets, act. If we did not get done on time, we were written up. Most housekeepers have to cut corners to keep from being fired at places like this. I know not all are like this because some people have told me they were paid by the room rather than hourly. A lot of hotels are like this. I've heard some places have much less time too. Pretty much every modern elevator cab will not and cannot free fall. There are counterweights attached to the top of the car that engage an emergency braking system as soon as a free fall were to even start happening. Also, you can't get out of the elevator from inside if it were stuck, so don't even try. A rescue worker must unlatch the escape hatch from outside the car to use it. So yes, you are stuck in there, but you won't fall. Also, elevator shafts are the most fireproof part of any contemporary building. These code requirements pertain to the US. Other elevators in other countries don't always install an escape hatch. Okay, so if a building is on fire and you get in the elevator and it gets stuck, you won't burn up but could die from smoke inhalation. Or at the very least, you're stuck in a metal box until they put out the fire and rescue you. Nursing student here. When we get your permission to do your procedures, IVs, catheters, etc., and you ask, have you done this before? Yes, many times, on a lifeless plastic mannequin. 90% of pest control is acting for customers. If a customer isn't home, we spray it out, do a good job, and leave. If a customer is home, we spray it out, pretend to inspect crap, spray crap that doesn't need to be sprayed. Sometimes we go in the attic, etc. When we take money from your hand, we try to make it seem like you got your money's worth. Mostly we just waste time. I hate it. I think that's any industry. If I'm cooking in the back, it's on the grill. Wait, flip, wait. When I'm out front where people are watching me, I have to constantly be moving. Everything has to appear as though the timing and measurements are crucial. Used to work as a front desk associate for a big hotel chain. Hotels purposely overbook as they expect 20% of reservations to cancel or not show. The statistic is often accurate. There was only one instance where we had to send people down the road to another hotel because we were overbooked for an event and no one cancelled or was a no-show. I am unsure if smaller hotel chains or those with more money or boutique hotels operate in this manner. This crap happened to me the last time I had to go to Chicago for work. Nothing more frustrating than getting to the hotel at 11 PM dead exhausted and knowing they gave your room away overbooked. Despite increased media coverage and several high-profile incidents in the past couple of years, most companies still treat information security as a nuisance and will do their best to skirt around implementing even the bare minimum standards required by regulation. Nobody wants to be the next Sony or Target, but at the same time most companies don't want to spend the time and money on implementing and adhering to proper controls and policies. Work in the propane natural gas industry. A lot of your technicians have no idea what they're doing. They will call and won't know what part they need, or they won't have the proper training or certifications to install something. Don't buy fiber gas logs. They soot more and have more of a smell. People always tell you that it will eventually stop, but that's not always the case. You want refractory logs. I read this in the voice of Hank Hill, petroleum engineer at an oil field service company. Part of my job is to analyze the cementing jobs on wells, and I serve mostly the Gulf of Mexico. I can tell you that there are a few operators, not the majority, but a few, who will put pressure on us to give bogus analyses saying they have good cement bonding when the log shows otherwise. The importance of this is that they will avoid paying for remedial cementing jobs to seal up their interval, but that can leave the potential for leaks up to surface. I can tell you that my company does not tell analysts to give in. We will tell you when you have a bad cement job, even if my company did the cementing. Unfortunately, I can tell you that there are service companies who are willing to stretch the truth for $1, and as a result there are still some wells drilled in Gom Post Macondo that aren't isolated from the surface. The operators and service companies know that, and they knowingly dupe the government. The nurses and staff at your DR's office talk about you amongst themselves and their friends and family. Half the time when an airline loses your baggage, it is because the plane is too heavy and it is easier overload and then just unload luggage and to send it on the next plane than to get passengers off. Air Corp has actively covered up sexual abuse by their staff against delinquent children. I did a 3-shift stunt with them before learning that they're a complete dogshit company. I hightailed it out of there as soon as this knowledge came to me. I live in a mid-sized city in WI, and they happen to run an academy designed for criminal youth as a diversion from formal incarceration. As it turns out, the state throws money at them and they cut costs to turn a higher profit. Entry level, you're paid maybe $8.50 an hour. At that rate, they cannot possibly attract competent professionals. They attract desperate people who were canned from Walmart, which now pays $9 an hour starting apparently. Can anyone verify? As a result of this, coupled with very high turnover, you will get someone in a supervisory position after 6 months on the job. They're called core staff. Well, about 2 years ago, some of the core staff were caught offering drugs to some of the students in exchange for sexual favors. One had a serious dating relationship with a student. He was 22, she was 15. As mandatory reporters, they are required by law to notify law enforcement. They failed to do so. The bad bees kept on buzzing, but they were systematically fired for petty reasons that did not include fricking the kids. One was terminated for being 2 minutes late to punch in. Another for wearing suggestive clothing to work. This story only became common knowledge to employees because the students whispered rumors. Nobody believed her at first, but I guess some sort of evidence was found in her room during a random search. It's now an accepted fact in whispered voices, but nothing have formally been done. In all honesty, you should report this to the police even anonymously, because with a dysfunctional structure like this, many more children are going to be exploited. I used to work at a chicken processing plant. One of my jobs was to remove labels from expired frozen meat and relabel it. Another interesting fact was that when pallets of frozen meat were lined up for quality control, they drilled a big hole in the middle box on the skid with a long dirty drill bit. Smelled the hole. If it smelled funny, they wrote rework on the box. That entire skid would be taken back to production and the smelly meat was ground up with the fresh meat until eventually it didn't smell anymore. Just because I'm a stockbroker doesn't mean I can do any better at picking stocks than you can. I make money on your trades, not on how well your portfolio does, though at least average performance avoids you taking your money and my commissions somewhere else. Buy a basic book on investing, diversify your portfolio, and contribute to your investments, especially a 401k, on a regular basis. Doing so will help you take advantage of dollar cost averaging and smooth out the highs and lows of trying to time the market, which all research says is basically impossible. NYC Construction Worker here. Something I've learned in the industry is the amount of money that is put away and lost on big jobs. For example, right now I'm working at 432 Park Avenue, the tallest building in the city. It is estimated that $2 million worth of parts, materials, and tools have been lost or stolen. $2 million. I can't believe it is possible to lose track of so much crap like that. Edit. Oh wow, this comment blew up and got more replies than I expected. I've been getting a lot of questions about my work in the building. Why don't I hold an AMA next week at Ariyama for everyone? Not exactly the same, but it kills me when a business shuts down for renovations, just to never again open because of poor planning and management. Also, theft X projects too. I am an accountant, specifically a hedge fund auditor. In our field, there is something called the materiality threshold. Basically, the materiality number is a certain percentage of a hedge fund's total value, usually 3%, which is the minimum amount of mistreatment needed for us, as auditors, to look further into the difference in an account. My funds range in size from $50 million to $10 billion. In other words, say I'm working on a fund worth $500 million. 3% of this is $15 million. If we find a mistake on the fund's finances that is less than this $15 million threshold, we do not care. We pass on it and move on. That's a lot of freaking money to be passing up on, and it could literally be anywhere. And this happens much more often than I'd like to admit. A huge number of Chinese students being admitted to college in the US. are doing so on the back of SAT scores they cheated to get, TOEFL scores they paid other people to take, personal statements they paid other people to write, fake reference letters and lists of completely imagined activities, awards and honors. Seriously, you wouldn't believe the number of Chinese students who have already studied at college in the US for 2+ years and can't even apply for the visa by themselves but have to pay someone else to do it for them. If you see an ambulance going lights and sirens and then all of a sudden turn them off, it's not because we're buttholes trying to get to lunch faster. Sometimes we get cancelled or downgraded to not going lights and sirens. Also, at least in San Diego, we're not allowed to go lights and sirens on the freeway. We'll turn them off to get on the freeway, then back on as soon as we get off. Also, pull to the right, you idiots. To add to this, when an ambulance or other emergency vehicle is running lights and sirens, the appropriate protocol is to slow down and move to the right. Do not stop. Stopping means you and the person behind you have nowhere to go, and now cannot move out of the way if we need to turn. Way too many people see the lights and just stop dead in their tracks. I've worked in a variety of fields from customer service, food and retail to financial, consulting, and advertising. The only rule that holds true is this: the more polite you are, the farther I'm willing to go to make you happy. Campaigns often coordinate with PACs, third-party groups, etc. through the use of dump sites, publicly posting raw, unedited videos or images for others to use in commercials or mailers, plans on where you will be canvassing, messaging plans, etc. on a technically public website. Since it's technically on a public website for everyone to see, but only the people you want to see it actually know the website URL you aren't illegally coordinating. Ding. We have a winner. At Panera, if you ask for a large-sized water up, we have to give it to you. Those tiny little water cups kind of suck. The coffee isn't really made fresh every hour. We just change the time card. The soups aren't made fresh either, they come frozen in bags. The green tea isn't even tea, it's just this weird syrupy juice that we mix with water. If you act angry about your order, we probably will offer you a free pastry. It sucks working there, they often will randomly request overtime. For example, I would work 7-3, then they'd ask me to stay till 8 or something. It's also completely normal to get burned on the job because they don't have many safety precautions. Our oven mitts were old, ratty cloth rags. We often don't have designated cooling areas, so many people got burned while I was there. Like almost every employee has had a serious, 2nd or 3rd degree burn, if not several. Oh, and unless you were immediate danger of dying, you would have to complete your shift. I got a 3rd degree burn on my arm and had to complete my shift. My manager told me that it wasn't that bad, that I didn't need to see a doctor, and that she'd seen worse and I'd be fine completing my shift. I would never recommend working there. So glad I quit. Also, they will make you take your breaks at dumb times. Working 8-4? Okay, take your break at 8:30. Cause I said so. Fast food restaurants always have tons of boxes if you're going to be moving soon. Arbys is always really good about saving them for you if you ask. I used to work at a supermarket. When we tell you something is out of stock and you insist we check out back, we just sit down out back and use our phone for 3 minutes and come and tell you it's out of stock. Ditto for retail. The stock rooms at a certain department store named after James Cash Penny were such a disorganized mess that I wouldn't have been to actually check for a product even if I wanted to. If a customer was super nice, I might give it a shot, but I usually just took that time to sit down for a few minutes. School staff are as bitchy and gossipy as the kids on the yard. Most teachers take the complete pee out of you and call you every name under the sun if you're a cunty student. Ofsted are constantly amending rules and professional practice, to the extent that we can barely keep up with them. For example, you're technically not even allowed to send naughty kids out of the classroom now. Here in the UK, the average teacher teaches about 20 hours a week but works nearly 50. Paperwork is becoming more and more ludicrous. Primary school teachers especially have it bad. There is a problematic shortage of males working with emotional behavioral problem children from all ages in places like pupil referral units. It's so bad that if you are a male, with a degree, some classroom experience, preferably any form of teaching or teaching assistant qualification, You can pretty much walk right into a TA job at a pro. We also need a lot more male teachers for primary schools. Academies have good and bad qualities. If they are very well run with the right people, it's a great thing that they can have their own curricula. There seems to be a public paranoia of the wrong people owning an academy and using this to create their own brainwashing propaganda, etc. It's a gross overreaction. Ofsted would close them in a snap of a finger. The bad thing about academies is that teachers don't have to be teacher trained. This is ludicrous. There is a completely not talked about issue with high schools completely ignoring future needs. I've listened to far too many NEETs talking about how high school ignored them and didn't do a lot to help, etc. for it to be a coincidence. On the other hand, teachers have it tough. Some class sizes are 38 students. I don't think any class should be bigger than 20. There's a stereotype that teaching assistants are lesser and wannabe teachers. This is BS. Teaching assistants are vital and ridiculously important, and the vast majority of teachers hugely respect them. It's a noble profession, but the pay sucks. The Cinnamon stick at Domino's looked wet because they absolutely unload butter on them. Also, as a pizza deliverer, I actually don't think it's funny when you wave me down and act like you were the one that ordered pizza and then say something clever like haha we were just trying to get free pizza lol. Frick off, you are wasting my time. Walmart electronics employee here. Prepaid phone plans can be really useful, a lot more than you think. I'll edit with more info later if anyone cares. Most security guards have zero power. Their job is to observe what's happening and then call the authorities. There's obviously sites where they're authorized to do a little more. Nightclubs, hospitals etc. But in most cases, they are nothing more than an authority presence. Former security here. The company I worked for had 2 classes of assignment. Observation, like your typical night guard at a construction site, for example, and enforcement, sites where the so assigned had to have his firearm permit and be armed. Different posts, different duties. Not all security officers are restricted to the observe and report option. Associates at Home Depot can give markdowns of up to $50 without manager approval. The various reasons you can ask for a markdown include slow moving items, damaged packaging, the item you want is not in stock, they're taught to sell you a better version for the same price, Lowe's has something cheaper nicer, Lowe's will do this as well. There was a $400 gun safe I wanted at Lowe's. I spoke to the manager for a couple minutes, noted that a shelf was missing inside the safe and that there was a little play in the door when it was closed. He sold it to me for $260. Worked for a year in education support at a theater and dance school. After talking to the students about the importance of health and life balance, the dance instructors would go back to the staff room and make fun of any overweight students, mock other staff's lunch choices, drink diet energy drinks and smoke cigarettes to keep their appetite dampened, and I'm pretty sure a few of them were bulimic too. It was really hypocritical. I think it's better to lie to kids to give them good habits than to let them idolize smoking and puking. When you call support for a large tech company that uses a popular fruit in their logo, you are not speaking to that company. You are talking to someone sitting in their home being paid very poorly. Think long and hard about giving this person your credit card number. I won't. Not necessarily. My husband is sitting in a call center being paid so-so. If your car breaks down and a police officer offers to call you a tow truck, tell him you already called one. It will cost more than double the regular price if the police calls one for you. TV news producer writer US. We don't care if you know that we dumb down our show. Because if you are smart enough to realize that, then you're part of a very small minority. Work for a law firm. Roughly 90% of the time, if you think you're paying a lawyer to draw up a will, business contract, other legal document, it's really a paralegal legal assistant doing all the work. Sometimes, it's an assistant with no actual legal education who's mostly guessing. The lawyer will spend about 5-10 minutes looking over the document before you come in to sign it, pick it up. I sell auto parts for a dealership. If you're buying your parts from a dealer, you can always get a cheaper price. There are 2, list price and wholesale price. When they give you a price, ask them which it is, and tell them you want wholesale. They'll have to bite the bullet and give it to you, else lose the sale completely. We get a bonus based on sales, so we take a hit if we lose the sale, and it pisses the managers off. If a salesman refuses to sell to you at wholesale, and the manager finds out, often they'll give you the employee discount, 10% above cost, just to keep you happy. Wholesale is a good chunk less, usually between 24% minus 30% less than list. I am a terrible salesman and hate my job, so I give everyone wholesale all the time. I work for a veteran affairs medical center doing psych research, and in terms of my salary and time, they are strict. They get every hour and minute from me for their money. They're not wasting your taxpayer money from what I've seen. It's a much bigger system than me, but hey, at least here we're very respectful of who pays our salary. Astronomer here. Last month I happened to meet the head of the post-Pluto science phase of the New Horizons probe, and there is a really settled unofficial plan for future science. The reason it hasn't really been publicized yet is they don't have the funding secured. Typically for long duration missions like this you don't get the additional funding until it's needed, i.e. Voyager 2 wasn't funded for Uranus and Neptune until it got to Saturn. Basically, they are going to do a flyby of one Kuiper Belt object which will happen in early 2019. Not enough fuel for visiting the two candidates it's been narrowed down to is my understanding, which is an object discovered last year by Hubble and is too small to be observed with ground-based telescopes. Estimates range from 1075 miles for the size. Sounds like a lot, but it's basically because we have no idea yet on what kind of surface brightness these KBOs have. The other detail that's going to be really interesting is while they're only flying close to one, the probe will pass close enough to 10 other Kuiper Belt objects that the pictures we get back will be at better than Hubble resolution. Remember, we can't observe these things from Earth itself. Arguably not that hard to do considering we are talking about space rocks that are a few dozen miles in diameter, but still a hell of a lot more than the nothing we know about them right now. Finally, I should note that for Pluto Phyllis we are currently in a lull on new images until September, as they are still just getting the bulk of the data back now and are analyzing it. In September we are going to start getting the first of the more detailed science results released, as well as a promised composite image of Pluto that will look fantastic, I'm sure. Not enough fuel for visiting the two candidates it's been narrowed down to is my understanding. Earth. When I worked the polls for the 2012 election a bunch of votes weren't counted. For example, this one guy voted for every candidate on the paper ballot. When we explained to him that you have to choose one person for each category, he said, yes. He didn't speak English very well, so we just had him slide his ballot through the machine, but obviously the machine didn't count it since he voted for everyone. Other paper votes weren't counted either because they didn't fill out the ballot the right way or for other reasons I'm forgetting. It was busy as heck and exhausting trying to teach people how to do something as simple as voting for 16 hours. To be fair, if someone can't make a tick next to a name, it's probably for the best that their votes don't count. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.